One of the greatest benefits to loving video games is that we're kind of used to being alone for a while. Whether it's those long multiplayer sessions or a gripping story that hooks us in until late into the next morning, we've always got something on our backlogs to chip at if we're stuck at home.
Given that it's April, the notoriously damp month before spring truly blooms, there's a good chance that many of you will spend some rainy days inside in the near future. And on these sorts of days, there's nothing better than playing some comfort games. The ones that give you a warm, uplifting feeling that makes you forget all about the outside world.
Join me and my good friend MykonosFan today as we highlight a handful of our favorite comfort games that could uplift you when you are stuck inside on a rainy day. Or, for any other reason. While it's certainly not a genre that I play all the time, one style of game that's become a sort of go-to when I want to absorb myself for an entire day and just forget about the world is the Metroidvania. And that all started with one of the greatest games ever made, Metroid Prime. Now trust me, I know that the concept of Metroid Prime might not be something that you would associate with comfort. Playing as a lone bounty hunter exploring a hostile alien planet and taking on an army of murderous space pirates with no contact with the outside world, yeah, that doesn't exactly have the same fuzzy feeling as Yoshi.
Really, the entire subgenre is intimidating when you think about it. Metroidvanias, or exploration-based adventure games, start you out with nothing, leaving you weak and vulnerable to the world around you, and telling you, with no direction, to go explore. All you can do is tiptoe your way through the first few hours, hoping you find the right path and the right upgrades, and hoping that the game is designed well enough to organically guide you to said path.
For me, the comforting thing about Metroid Prime, the thing that sold me on the genre, is just that the best designed examples of this genre find a way to make you feel that you are weak, only to teach you just how strong you really are. When you first land in Talon's overworld and you hear the rain pattering around you in an otherwise quiet, beautiful landscape, you're nothing more than a speck. And with what seem to be several paths surrounding you, it might feel intimidating to even start at that point. Despite that eerie feeling pitted up in your stomach, you continue, and Metroid Prime unveils a gradual difficulty curve, showcasing that yes, Samus may be weak right now, but also that even still, she is remarkable.
You'll be challenged, but at no point in the first hour or so of the game will you feel stuck. You'll always find a path forward, and you'll feel smart as you do, with this sense of discovery as if you yourself are conquering this alien world. Meanwhile, it's all been perfectly manufactured behind the scenes. Every point from the successes to the struggles, to ensure that you're only feeling exactly how the developers at Retro Studios wanted you to feel at any given point. From the small dopamine hits of finding a new missile upgrade or a new energy tank to increase your health, to the massive reward of unlocking a new ability and gaining access to a new area you'd seen before but couldn't access, every step that you take in Metroid Prime is a thrilling one.
And the game's atmosphere, its excellent atmosphere, amplifies that pacing. Very few areas overstay their welcome, and around every corner you'll find new threats, with new powers to combat those threats at every pass. Even the most frightening creatures on Talon aren't really all that scary when you can research them, which is possible thanks to Samus's scan visor. I personally love reading all of this intricate research into local flora and fauna, learning enemy weaknesses, and discovering knowledge about Talon's history. It truly makes everything in the game all the more manageable, and even further sucks me into this wonderful, dangerous world. That feeling of control, of safety, is inherently both comforting and empowering. Being able to, by yourself, systematically tackle any problem in your way is one of the best feelings to take your mind off of the clouds looming outside your window. And while this hasn't happened to me in the same immediate way that it did when I first played Prime 1, other exploration-focused adventure games have hooked me in with that same reward loop and that same desire to see what could be next, to learn how to get to the next area, to discover every secret in the castle, as it were. Most recently, that crucial first hour of a game like Bloodstained, for example, didn't click with me simply because it wasn't as well designed to the player's benefit. But once I got past those initial growing pains, I practically 100% completed the game in the span of a weekend. I just couldn't put it down. But that's a game I'll talk about another day. Games like Metroid Prime or Symphony of the Night or Super Metroid or Bloodstained might be out of your comfort zone, but if you give them a shot and you give them a little bit of time to cook, they'll very likely become your next comfort food. And when that happens, this genre has an entire rabbit hole of wonderful games to fall into.
I'd like to leap from that fantastic mechanical progression to a franchise with fantastic character progression, one that might be the best video game equivalent to a Saturday morning cartoon. Sly Cooper is a series I've played to relax many a time on a rainy day, or a day when I'm in a funk, or when I just want to relax and revisit the Cooper Gang's heists. This stealth action platformer series puts you in control of the Cooper Gang, a group of Robin Hood-style thieves that systematically steal from other thieves to put the worst of society behind bars.
Now, we could talk about how the gameplay is excellent and dive into how Sly 1 plays like the stealth-based Crash Bandicoot spin-off game that we never knew we wanted, or how Slys 2 through 4 blast the genre wide open, throwing you into open-world hubs and granting you control of an ever-expanding Cooper Gang, but that's not why this series is on this list, and I've got full retrospectives for each game if you want to hear more about what makes Sly such a great time.
Instead, the reason that we've chosen to include Sly today is because of its episodic nature and its beautiful character moments. Each Sly game treats itself in that warm Saturday morning cartoon style we mentioned a moment ago, from its art style and presentation to the story being broken up into several episodes based around a single major heist. With each mission, you're treated to another nugget of progression towards that heist, whether it's bugging the office of this episode's big bad, or setting up a getaway for the day of the big job. And with each of these missions, you get another view into the characters of the Cooper Gang. Obviously, at first glance, you can tell that Sly is the slick master thief, that Bentley is the brains, and that Murray's the muscle, but every piece of dialogue brings you even more of their kinship.
What's more, each of these missions feels like it has a visible impact on your objective because, well, it does. Episodes are rarely more than an hour and a half long, and that continuous change of scenery along with the soft reset between episodes makes you feel like you're accomplishing something every time you play, both for the heist at hand and the greater objective of that particular game. Each individual game very much feels like a season out of a long-running cartoon series, which is why Sony selected the perfect candidate when Sly was announced as the very first PlayStation television show. I don't know about you, but I am so grateful that when I'm finished with the Sly games, I can sit back and watch the Sly Cooper TV show that definitely launched in October 2019 after years of open and honest communication, and certainly not silence. Now, what about the 2016 Sly Cooper movie, you ask? But the thing that I loved most about Sly when I was younger, and the thing that I still love most about it today, is that the games didn't act like a kid series. I mean, for one, you play as a band of thieves, which goes against any traditionally kid-friendly lesson that stealing is bad. But more than that, across 2 decades and 2 developers, the teams were able to draw a nuanced distinction between the Cooper Gang and those thieves that they're fighting, by showing that Sly and the crew, at the end of the day, will always throw the money away if it means doing what's right for the world.
At the same time, they also make sure to question whether Sly's stealing truly is any different just because he's doing it with good intentions. The Sly games treat the audience with respect, knowing that they can handle dark and potentially mature situations, and using those situations as valuable teaching moments. In a world where children are often fed the entertainment version of junk food, dumbed down garbage, or shows well out of their age range that they probably shouldn't be watching yet, this level of respect is huge.
This is a franchise that opens up with Sly's parents being murdered by a gang. It deals incredibly traumatic blows to each of the main cast, and we get to see how they work through those traumas for the sake of both themselves and their buddies. We see that they are not an infallible team, and that other thieves can in fact get ahead of them and foil their plans. And in countless situations, we see the Cooper Gang being challenged. Case in point, a few years after putting his dad's killers behind bars, Sly has the maturity to put that event behind him and work with one of those killers to save that killer's daughter. That would take more strength than anybody could imagine, and they put that in a game meant for kids to teach them the lesson that grudges aren't worth holding. These guys regularly deal with love, loss, betrayal, personal demons, and where this trio started out seeming like childish takes on stealth story tropes, they evolve organically and episodically into, I'll say it, some of the best damn characters of the 2000s. And the best part is, you don't even have to leave your house to nab this series. All 4 Sly games are downloadable digitally on the PS3 and PlayStation Vita if you don't have them yet.
Of course, none of you have a PS Vita. Even I don't have a Vita. What the fuck?
The series is even available to stream to your PS4 through PlayStation Now. For no more than $25, you'll be able to play through at least 40 hours of action platforming greatness, all the while learning to love these PlayStation characters as if they were friends of your own. And in all likelihood, you'll find, just like me, that Sly is a comfort food series that you'll continue to come back to for years to come.
Of course, if you're looking for a serialized game franchise that has less of a cartoony vibe but can still suck you in and completely take you away from the world, well, it'll come as no surprise as Kevin and I constantly find ways to talk about these games, but we'd be remiss to not recommend the Yakuza series. Sort of like how the Sly games each have stories that unfold chapter by chapter, Yakuza presents a gripping saga of crime dramas that unravel more and more through each entry's multiple chapters. Orbiting around one Kiryu Kazuma's time in the Yakuza, as well as his time trying to get away and stay away from it, there's an immense universe of suspense and a rich, charismatic cast of characters to follow and become invested in.
While the actual events of the stories certainly get dark, one thing that helps make these games perfect to lose yourself in right now is that, throughout it all, Kiryu Kazuma remains a flawed North Star of sorts. He's a good man trapped in a bad life. He does bad things, very bad things, and he does them often, even if they're with virtuous intentions or with a noble end goal. You'll absorb yourself into his story without absorbing his actions into yourself, but you'll find that as he grows throughout the series, his journey will stick with you for long after. Now especially, it's just intangibly nice to see a force of good clashing against the flow of a seedy, dangerous world. A force that continually fights for the right things. Yakuza games feature mature storylines with criminals doing terrible things for their own gain, but they also showcase an unwavering belief in the inherent good of humanity.
While the main storyline focuses on combating the worst of the worst, dozens and dozens of side stories show a much lighter side of the world. A side where people fret about the approval of their significant other from their father, where soft boy bands need help keeping up their punk image, or even one where you accidentally help introduce taxes to the country of Japan. These side stories run the entire gambit, from touching to funny, sad to uplifting. You'll never know when you'll run into one next, you'll never know the impact it'll have on you, and you never know the ride you'll be taken on. If you're stuck inside right now and are finding yourself missing human connection, missing the human experience, these small rays of sunshine are a wonderful temporary fix. And even on a much lighter note, there's just so much to do throughout the Yakuza series that can at least help you pretend you're able to get out there and do it yourself. Even just the main recurring district of Kamurocho itself is refreshing to poke around and explore when you're cooped up at home, and this densely detailed living city with each continuing entry begins to feel more and more like coming home each time you start a new Yakuza game.
Hey Chris, I don't have a good transition right now, so guess what?
What?
I peacocked your mom. Let's talk about Death Stranding. Now I can already hear all of you saying, Kevin, how is Death Stranding a comforting, uplifting game? It's a f***ing apocalypse. Well, first off, don't swear, that's rude. But second off, Death Stranding is exactly the kind of comforting game to play when you're stuck at home. I say this from experience because in December 2019, I had the flu, and much of that week was spent either sleeping or playing Hideo Kojima's latest game. This was not a game that I had pretty much any confidence in before release. The thought of pure, unfiltered Kojima was almost terrifying as somebody who's often struggled to click with his, let's call it style. If I hadn't received it as a birthday gift, there's a strong chance that I wouldn't be talking about it right now because I was not spending money on this game. But then over the course of that week, and even after I was feeling better, I couldn't really put Death Stranding down. For all intents and purposes, this game is probably the strongest definition of a walking simulator made so far. For much of the core gameplay loop, you are quite literally an apocalyptic postman delivering mail to and from distribution centers and individual encampments while trying not to be killed by rain ghosts. More than that, this game isn't traditionally what I would call fun. The very act of walking is somehow a struggle thanks to Norman Reedus' small fetuses.
No, not that one.
So, for much of the game, you're just gonna be meandering back and forth through often painful mechanics that piss you off enough to make you question why you're even playing. And then Chapter 3 hits, and you start to see what Death Stranding is really about: social engineering. The bridges and vehicles and establishments and items and aid that you establish in your game world will show up seamlessly in other players' worlds to help them progress. Connecting these different communities to your national network isn't just completing some Ubisoft tower like in every modern open world game. No, it leads to the region around you lighting up with hundreds upon hundreds of other players' vehicles, roads, bridges, and zip lines.
Bringing people together isn't just your job in the narrative, it quite literally makes your job easier. More importantly than that, you start to play this game looking forward to struggling through those untraveled paths, over those mountains, through the rain and past the rain ghosts, because when you do, you get to help others. And sure, receiving likes on your creations is nice. That little hit of dopamine when your like meter goes up is positively euphoric. But it's even more rewarding knowing that you're making an impact to some player that you'll never meet, and that in turn, they're helping somebody else.
Pretty much once I got into Chapter 3, I noticed myself getting into this sort of zen while playing Death Stranding, where I could turn my brain off a bit, just walk around these beautiful terrains, and listen to a podcast or this game's excellent soundtrack. The gameplay loop that I started out hating grew into something that I looked forward to. How many orders could I complete in one route? How many generators or ziplines could I set up along the way to make my path even faster and safer? How many roads could I put resources into? How many people could I help? I was quite literally putting the country back together piece by piece. I just hadn't realized it for that first 8 hours of the game, and that's, in spite of the fact that they tell you every 5 goddamn minutes. Death Stranding, for placing you in an incredibly dangerous, negative world, is a game about positivity. It's a game where, yes, you are constantly told that your character is the coolest, strongest, most important hero who can save the world all by himself, and he's got a huge dick, and it's also a game about hope. About staying connected, because while humanity's social nature can be our greatest weakness, it's also far and away our greatest strength. The ability for people from all walks of life to come together, or perhaps stay apart for the greater good, that is what Death Stranding is about, and it's a scarily prescient game in that regard. But if you stick with it, you keep helping people both in your world and other players' worlds, and you keep on keeping on, Death Stranding rewards you with some of the best character moments in recent memory. It rewards you with a truly hopeful game experience, and yes, it rewards you with those sweet, sweet likes.
And to close out, let's move from one hellish apocalypse to another and talk about Animal Crossing. I've loved it ever since I was a kid, wasting away entire days just mindlessly fishing, and 18 years after its initial release, I'm here as an adult doing that exact same thing with its latest entry, New Horizons. If there's any video game series that's the textbook example of video games comfort food, it's probably this one. If you've somehow dodged your entire Twitter feed being filled with this game at launch and are unaware of what Animal Crossing is about, you basically create a player avatar, move to an island with talking animals, and begin building a small society from scratch through menial chores. The world is cozy, the animals are borderline sickeningly charming, and overall the game just radiates good vibes. It's genuinely hard to be upset when playing this game, as barely anything can ever go wrong for you. One of the best things about Animal Crossing is that you can put as little into it as you want or as much into it as you want, making it perfect for a rainy day or an extended staycation. If you want to just open the game, do a run around your island digging for fossils, selling items, and catching up with your neighbors, you can be in and out in half an hour and still cover the bare essentials. On the complete opposite end of the spectrum, you can do all of that, hunt down rare fish and insects, begin reshaping your island, save up money to remodel your home, have a pleasant chat with visiting guest characters, go to randomly generated islands for crafting materials, and before you know it, 8 real-life hours have passed, Tom Nook's stolen your wife, and you can't even remember your own name anymore.
For me, New Horizons was my first proper Animal Crossing game, because if I say I played Amiibo Festival first, you'll hunt me down and kill me. I didn't expect New Horizons to dig its claws into me as well as it had. I thought I would be in and out in a week, as these games usually aren't my style. But here I am putting in a little bit of progress each and every day, and some days putting in a lot of progress. Even though they're nothing more than simple dialogue boxes, my island's villagers are always a joy to chat with, to the point that I've gone out of my way to find them the perfect gift just because. Simply put, it just feels great to come to this game and make your own progress on your terms, to make the world you want to see, and to explore an endlessly happy community. Oh god, is this a cult? The only limiting factor here is how much time that you want to put into it, and even better, if you can't meet up with your buddies in person, you can always meet up with them in Animal Crossing to spend some quality time developing a stronger bond while working towards each of your goals.
Those goals are especially rewarding here, as the game is great at visually communicating how the work you put in is paying off. You start on the island with a few motley tents, and surely enough, if you put the time in day by day, soon the animals on your island will have actual homes and you'll begin funding what's basically a mansion for yourself. And all on a mortgage with 0% interest. Animal Crossing is like life, but fun. Very quickly, you'll build a museum on your island, and every exhibit that goes in it is only there thanks to your donations. Day by day, you'll build ramps, construct bridges, and slowly but surely, your desolate island becomes a bustling, idyllic getaway spot. There's always something else to chip away at, and it always feels great when you accomplish it. Oh my god, Animal Crossing and Death Stranding are the same game.
So now that we've shared our comfort games, it's your turn. What games do you like to sit back and play just to brighten or uplift your day? Let us know by chiming in the comments. Chris, once again, a special thanks for joining me on this video. Where can we find you?
Well, if you'd like to watch some more videos to help you unwind and relax, check out my channel, MykonosFan. In fact, if you're looking for an excellent game for a rainy day, check out my review of Persona 5 Royal.
Oh man, I love Persona 5. It's like my favorite game of all time. I can't wait to finally play it for the first time. If you'd like to continue the watch party, here's a video of mine where I analyze what might just be the strongest opening level in a Mario game. As always, thank you very much for watching, sharing, subscribing, and supporting, and until next time, stay golden. Oh, that is not... Oh god, that is not good.
Today's episode was produced in part thanks to supporters on Patreon, including my $5 Silverbolt patrons like Mayor Hairbear and Buckles Chucklow. To learn more about how you can help support future videos and receive exclusive perks and bonuses, please visit patreon.com/thegoldenbolt.